Color pairing is tricky, especially when you have human face competing with a loud background. Today, I will show you how to select colors that complement your subject and draw focus to the face, even within a busy Memphis style layout. I'm MengChi, a creative designer at Meng Design. I've struggled with color selection for quite a while, until recently I finally figured out this specific logic for portrait. This is the secret to our Memphis pattern video here. Watch it if you want to have the full content. By the end of this tutorial, you will be able to deliver a high-energy design that still prioritizes clear information. To follow along, grab the free starter file link below. Everything is set up so you can learn by doing. Let's jump in. In our last video, we learned that Memphis design is loud. The colors are mostly neon, pastel, and bold. If you look at the HSB color picker, these colors usually sit in the upper right corner. To start, we have 4 main elements: your human subject, the cutout color, the background color, and the pattern color. Our focus is always the human. Because of that, the most important color to select first is the cutout color. We need this to complement the skin tones and clothing of your subject. The cutout serves a functional purpose. It distinguishes your subject from the busy background. We want this to be bold, so it draws focus to create maximum contrast. We will keep the background and pattern colors soft and light as pastel color. First, use the eyedropper tool to see where your subject's natural colors sit. Examine their hair, clothes, and skin. From those drops, pick one and keep the hue value. But move your picker further away from where the drops sit in brightness and saturation. Pick a position that is well saturated and has at least 50% brightness. Repeat this for all 5 portraits and apply the color to see if they feel right. Next, open Color Wheel Palette Generator and choose a split palette. This gives us maximum contrast in hue. Input your bold cutout color and see what the generator suggests. Copy and paste them to our palette. Since we want the background to be a pastel, we need to adjust these results. Reduce the saturation of these split colors to 20% and set the brightness to at least 80%. Then duplicate this palette. We'll use this one as the starting point of our second palette. Take a look at the 3 color palette and adjust the split pastel palette to make sure 3 colors are harmonious. The pastel color should sit at the upper left corner. Background color is the next one to pick, since it needs to contrast well not just the cutout color, but the card background as well. Therefore, pick the one that contrasts well with a white card background. Then apply the other as the pattern color. Now take a look at the final result and then adjust the pattern color if needed. Remember to keep it at the upper left corner. For patterns like Terrazzo, you need 3 steps of color to create depth. Here's how. Add 2 lighter colors. Decrease the saturation by 5, so 20, 15, and 10. Then decrease the brightness by 5, from the lightest top to the darkest. This creates a natural curve in your palette. Adjust these steps until you have enough contrast against the background. Then apply them to your design, adjust again if needed. And that's it for a pastel background with bold cutout. We add vibrancy and interesting pattern without taking out the focus of human subject. Next, we are going to dial up the vibrancy a little and make it even more Memphis style. Now let's duplicate the design and the pattern. Since the pattern source in your design is still linked to the first version, you can verify that by clicking the target icon here. To fix this, click on Select Source again and select the duplicated pattern set to relink it. Before we pick new colors, let's reset everything so our eyes are not biased by the previous palette. Change the background color to D9, the color color to 9F, and the pattern color to white. In the last palette, our strategy was to use soft pastel to give the subject the most focus. For this version, we are going to dial up the energy. Take the color palette we duplicated earlier and pick one of the split colors. Change your saturation to 100 and the brightness to 60. I usually choose the color that looks most like a complement to the cutout color. Since most cutout colors are already saturated and bright, we dial down the brightness of this background color to create a better contrast. Now you can start applying these colors. It should look solid for most of them, but feel free to adjust the pattern color if it feels too contrasty. In this vibrant version, your cutout color has to fight for attention against a striking background. So don't be afraid to subtly adjust the hue, saturation, or brightness of the cutout to make the subject really pop. For the terrazzo pattern, use the same curve method we used before to create your color steps. Finally, as a finishing touch, tone down the background of the entire section to a soft pastel yellow. This brings everything together so the design feels high energy but still balanced. And that's it for a more vibrant look. Which one do you prefer when you are designing in a Memphis style? Let me know in the comments. You now have a repeatable logic for pairing color with portrait. Always focus on the subject first, then build contrast through hue, saturation, and brightness. If this was helpful, please give the video a like and share it with your design buddies. If you want a simpler way to bring consistency to your imagery, check out my tutorial on duotone imagery. It's a much faster way to handle varied portraits. I'll see you there. Bye.